Okay, let's talk. Let's talk. Virtua Fighter. Virtua Fighter 5. It's back again for like the 90th time. and I mean that respectfully, right? To all my Virtua Fighter heads, don't take it the wrong way. I like Virtua Fighter 2. You know, I had a lot of fun playing this game. And I think Virtua Fighter is a great game. I've always found Virtua Fighter to be interesting, despite some of the things people say, like, for example, character designs are kind of bland. I never really thought that, to be honest with you, because I knew for a fact that Virtua Fighter was always a fighting simulator, right? I always thought it was a fighting simulator, and I think that's what Sega's always pushed it as in the first place. But even then, right, from playing and just kind of seeing how things went, I was like, damn, man, Virtua Fighter, man, cool. And I've always just, like I said, I just always liked the series. I just thought it was always cool that there was an alternative to Tekken, because like in my household, I can tell you with a straight face, I played a lot of VF, and then from that it'd be like Bloody Roar, right? Like in my household, when it came to like Tekken, yeah, we played, but like we loved Virtua Fighter and Bloody Roar a lot more, and eventually DOA as well, especially DOA 2 in the Dreamcast. But that's neither here nor there. We talking about VF5 coming back again for like the 5th time. So VF5 coming back, I think is cool. This time around, they're bringing it on PC, rollback netcode, right? Which is really neat. Here, we're gonna switch over and we can actually take a look at it together. Actually, let's do a swaparoo buckaroos. All right, bam. So Sega did announce this. So VF5 R.E.V.O. It's gonna be here in the winter. Wishlisted on Steam now. It's got rollback netcode, 60 FPS 4K support, with new balance. Finally, for this game. This game came out so long ago, like 2006, 2008, somewhere in that ballpark. I remember seeing this game so long ago in the arcade. And yeah, I think it's neat, especially with new balance. Now, I will say, Virtua Fighter 5 is probably the last, and I mean most likely the last withstanding fighting game in 2024 now that still uses the old style of play. I don't mean the modern game nonsensical talk, right? Let's just get it straight. But what I mean is, like, it's still Virtua Fighter, right? Like, it's still VF. And I think that that's neat, right? I think that them re-releasing Virtua Fighter 5 is good. But what I'm kind of curious about in terms of new balance is, within this new balance, are they going to add new mechanics, add new smaller kind of like nitpick things that could hint to a Virtua Fighter 6? Because, you know, that tends to be the case, right? They tend to release, you know, characters or updates to these games in ways where they're introducing newer things before the new game comes out. So I'm very curious what they're gonna drop, you know, in terms of the new balance. Could be dash cancels, could be the removal of staggers. There's no telling what they're gonna do. But I will say this, right? Hopefully Akira won't do 60% for hitting you with shoulder while you're back turned. That's always been Akira. But I think what I know is gonna come up, right, and I'm gonna address it now, is that we're probably gonna hear the usual, you know, please don't modern fighting game Virtua Fighter. Please don't add things like drive rush or rage arts or heat drives and heat smashes. Leave it the purest of pure. To be honest with you, I'm not sure how far that's gonna go. I know people want fighting games to go back to quote unquote the way that they were, but I don't know how far that's gonna go for Virtua Fighter. I'll be the first to tell you, I think that this already is a good thing, but I think for Virtua Fighter 6 in particular, because while this is news, I feel like this is just telling to see how well a Virtua Fighter 6 would do. I think the modernizing of Virtua Fighter is something a lot of people are afraid of because they don't know which way it's gonna go, and they don't want to quote unquote ruin the game's integrity. When I think what's gonna end up happening, in my honest opinion, first and foremost, let me just talk about it from this perspective. I think first and foremost, Virtua Fighter needs to modernize itself in terms of visuals. The graphics in Virtua Fighter already, with the, you know, because they did re-release this game not that long ago, like in the pandemic, like 2020, 2021, I want to say. 2022? No, 2020, 2021. They dropped Virtua Fighter esports, or whatever it's called, the other version of it, because this is basically just that version, right? And that version is very pretty. And then it had crossovers with Tekken and some other stuff I want to say, with like costumes and whatnot. But what's there to be concerned about is the visuals in terms of what the characters look like. Now, I think characters who can stay pretty much the same would be like, I definitely think Jackie can stay the same. I think Sarah has some semblance of kind of still looking somewhat modern. Kage could be modernized, but as I'm looking at the roster, I'm thinking to myself, all these characters are reflective of their respective fighting styles, right? And obviously they reflect their personalities to whatever capacity, of course. But I think these characters at this point, when their current visual state is definitely reflective of the 90s and or when you know, Virtua Fighter originally came out. So, you know, I just look at it from the standpoint of, I wonder what they're gonna do in terms of what they look like visually. Characters I think that are fine are most like Jackie, Sarah, maybe Pi to some extent. Always pretty cool. I think Vanessa already looks pretty cool. Eileen already looks pretty cool. She already represents, like, you know, the monkey king. Or like just that Chinese fight style, if you will. Some characters could use some adjustments. Maybe Brad. I don't think touching Lei Fei would be smart. He already represents, you know, monks. But some others, yeah, sure. Regardless, I'm just concerned how this is gonna pan out. Because I think already modernizing the visuals of the game's characters is already important. But then the modernization of, and I hate using the modernization, but, you know, I guess when people say modernization, they're just not looking for a heat burst. You know, they're not looking for a heat system. But I'm really wondering what they're gonna do. Now, does that mean there's a cause for concern? Honestly, no. I think it's gonna be okay regardless what they do, because I look at it from this lens, right? And I'm gonna be 100% real and unbiased here. A lot of times when people say they want things to be the way that they were, there's some truth to it. Or they'll do said thing or buy said thing in said state, or if these things had this, it'd be great, right? But I question that very heavily, because we had several fighting game releases that didn't do well despite quote unquote people saying that they'd make the purchase and whatnot. And that's not to be a downer here, but like when it was on PS Plus, it was for free. And then even if, I think, yeah, you had to have PS Plus in order to play it on the PS4/PS5. And then once it went off from free to play, that game was a ghost town. And only the hardcore that liked VF still played it. So at that point, I'm wondering how far along are people really true to their word in terms of playing something like this. And we've had several other fighting games that have come back and stuff like that, where like they're reflective of quote unquote the older games, which this kind of lends into another topic in itself. But just for Virtua Fighter's sake, you know, I can only hope and pray people actually play it, because it really hurts when, you know, people have clamored and asked for a new Virtua Fighter, and truth be told, I want it too. But like, I just question how far along it's going to go in terms of the player base. And no different than anyone would have cause for concern whether or not it's going to be modernized or what have you. I'm more concerned, I'm not really concerned about the modernization quote unquote of the game. I'm more concerned about the player base as a whole. I know the hardcore of the old games are probably going to try it, but then I think what could happen, and would be not necessarily a bad thing, let's say the game is quote unquote modernized and then people don't like it, right? Well, Virtua Fighter 5 R.E.V.O is right here. I think this is a good thing, right? Where the players who enjoy VF5 can enjoy this new, and it's a new version of the game at that, you know? So there is a reason, even now, right? I think even now would be a good time to actually pick up Virtua Fighter, because it is a newer version of an older game, you know? So I think that's okay. But I think what worries me a little bit in that regard is that if they do these things, how far along are people gonna go? At that point, will the people speak and say, well, VF5 sucks, we're just gonna play VF6? I'm sorry, I said the other way around. VF6 sucks, we're gonna play VF5, thanks for giving us the rollback, you know what I mean? When there's still gonna be a larger player base on the other side, there'll still be more people who are gonna play. Like, I don't think it's bad if a game has a small community, right? As long as it's active, which a lot of fighting games have shown over the course of time. They have the ability to do that and stay active, you know? So, I mean, you can look at Melee, you can look at Third Strike, you can look at, you know, older Guilty Gears. You know, the only games that don't really have that right now is like Street Fighter 4 and like Cross Tekken. And even then, there aren't that many people playing it now, and there's not many people playing Street Fighter 5 at all either. But that's neither here nor there. I'm happy to see it anyway. I'm hoping to see a Virtua Fighter 6 personally. And you guys know me. You guys watching this, you guys know me. I'm very open to fighting games. I support them all. I may not play all of them. Maybe not all of them are played at a high level by me, but I can see things and see maybe this can be cool, maybe that can be cool. You know, I'm not against any fighting games, whether they're old or new. So this coming back is great for me. I love to see it. I'll try to play it, of course, and try to get good at it again. You know, especially with New Balance. Give me a chance to try Kage again. Or finally play the Kage. like maybe I'd like to, because I don't want to play ninjas anyway. But you know, I think it's gonna be neat. I think it's gonna be neat to see this, and the community that does play Virtua Fighter does have something to look forward to, especially amongst a lot of the newer fighting games. They got finally rollback netcode and all other stuff like that. So without rambling on too long, I'm just happy to see it. I'm curious about Virtua Fighter 6 a little bit more than this one. I'll definitely be playing it to some degree. I'll cover it to some extent as well. So I think it's great. You know, this is great for people who like Virtua Fighter, especially VF content creators. Yo, shout out to Tricky Eileen. You know, I know she's most likely ecstatic that a new Virtua Fighter is here, or an update to the game that they're already playing is here. So we're gonna see how this pans out. But with that being said, I'm excited. Hopefully you guys are too. And if you are, talk to me in the comments below. Let me know how you're feeling. Talk to me. Who's your favorite character? Who are you looking forward to? And yeah, I will end it here, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. You already know what time it is. Deuces, gooses.